Greetings, Timeshare Traveler here, episode 294. Using a timeshare like a second home. I wanted to reposition a timeshare, kind of thinking of it like it's a longer term thing. You're buying into a second home. It's not a vacation, which feels like, what am I going to do this year? And a timeshare is every year. So I want to think of it more as a second home. And so I'm going to reposition timeshares a second home. So and then I'll talk and I'll compare it to a traditional second home. What is it? So I'll talk about what is the goal of a second home: flexibility or a go-to place. That'll help you decide whether you should even get into a timeshare as a second home, and what it means to use your timeshare as a second home. And then again, I want to touch on then financial investment versus or luxury. What really is a timeshare? And some people get confused by that, and I just want to address that once and for all. So anyway, let's jump into what's the goal of a second home to help you sort of decide whether a timeshare is right for you or not. Okay, what is the goal of a second home? So if your goal for a second home is you want to own a place to go to on a regular basis, needs to have my stuff, is it going to be some point more of a retirement home where you spend more time over time when you have your other house is just sort of around your kids and your friends and stuff like that, and you don't mind the idea of maintaining a second home or managing the person who might be maintaining it for you. So there's are options where you can rent the maintenance to people to take care of stuff. On the flip side, a timeshare, if you treat it like a second home, because it is a long-term purchase, it's a home with variety. If you think of it as a long-term investment, not that it's going to appreciate, but it's a long-term investment in second home ownership. But you don't want the responsibility of owning a piece of property, but you want the privileged access to it. So that's the way you need to look at it. It's kind of like a second home. You don't really have the hassle of having to maintain it. You pay for that, but you do have privileged access to it. You love the idea of an available rental only when you want to use it. So you don't want to necessarily say, I want to use it this week, this time, this place, this so forth. You want that flexibility, and there's cost trade-offs to that. You love an area to explore. So some people use their timeshares to go to the same places, or you want to go to a bunch of different locations. But you don't want the idea of a hotel. You want to get out of that. You want something more than that. So it's more like a home or a condo or whatever you want to call it. And the last thing is the timeshare makes sense when you just don't want to deal with the maintenance issues. You are paying maintenance, but you need to recognize that it's effectively you have like a second home, but you're just not having to maintain those issues. So that's the way I look at it when I talk about the goal of a second home. First, deciding if I want a permanent place or variety, and the timeshare is more the variety option not more. It is the variety option in general, but you can use it over and over at the same location if that's how you want to use it. And I wanted to add a little more detail, kind of another way to look at it. I look at it as it's the choice of flexibility or a place to go. And there are cost trade-offs, but depending on where you buy your second home, it can be more or less than what you pay for your timeshare. So it's hard to use cost as the basis, but in general you can get by, I think, with buying less money into a timeshare than you would a second home. There are trade-offs though, because you don't get the investment part. Timeshare offers a single place to go or multiple places to go, shared usage, so it's not always available. You don't control how it looks. You buy the number of weeks you want to have a second place to stay. Buying a timeshare is buying into a list of second homes to rent. So you want to make sure you know what the list is. There's some flexibility around that, but it's more conceptually. On the flip side, an owned second home offers unlimited access. And if that's the number one thing you want, then, figure out that second home where you can afford it and that kind of stuff. A totally different conversation. Always available, furnished the way you love it because you pick the furniture, but it's only one place. So it depends on what's right for you. Again, I wanted to iterate treating it like a second home, but also it's not a second home. And I love the idea of treating my timeshare as a second home. It happens to be right now I'm full-time in timeshares, so my second home is my first and second home. But at some point I'll treat it as a second home. So figure how much you want to use your second home, and only buy what you need on a minimum basis. There are ways that on this channel that I show you how to expand beyond that, but only buy your portion of your second home. Buy just the minimum that you know you will use every year. And this is where people get in trouble. They end up having too much, or they can't use it, or stuff, all those kind of things. In some years you'll want more. Then use cash or point stretching options that I've on this channel. I've shown you multiple different ways to do that. But that's what you should do. You'll have to plan ahead, because it's not your home that's always available. So you have to plan ahead to sort out within the rules of the timeshare how you use your second home. And again, just reminding you, you're buying into a program of second home locations. They're kind of a fixed set. There's others you can, through other means, get to, but in general, you're buying into a fixed set. And you're paying someone to maintain those locations. So the people that are upset about the maintenance fees need to recognize it's kind of like a second home, and you're paying for someone to maintain that. That's why they're maintenance fees. By the way, if you own a home, a second home, you know there are maintenance fees. I've talked to people that actually own second homes, and I didn't realize how much it actually costs them to actually maintain a second home on a regular basis. So it's more expensive than people let on. And so I just caution you may think your maintenance fees are high, but owning a second home can be expensive as well. Anyway, the other thing is you're signing up for a set of rules on how you book those second homes. Because it's shared, there's got to be a set of rules. And that's really all it is when you think about a timeshare and as a second home. It's that there's a set of rules so that everyone who's sharing that second home knows how to get access to it in a at least equitable way. Maybe not ideal, because it's a personal opinion, but at least it's consistent. The last thing I want to talk about is financial investment or luxury. I mean, so many people think that when they buy a timeshare, they're buying into investment, mostly because that's what the timeshare salespeople tell you, but that's not what you're doing. You're buying a luxury. A second home is an investment. Primary goal is to have a home. Secondary goal is to use the home as a second place to live. It's not a rental property. I suppose you can rent it out initially to help pay for it. That's a strategy of how you acquire a second home. But it's not the goal of actually using the second home. And timeshare is a luxury second home. It's partial ownership of multiple locations. It's not an investment that appreciates over time. I mean, maybe a little bit, but it's greatly reduced from what you ever pay. I don't know that maybe somebody bought a timeshare decades ago that now the resale value is equal to what they paid, but most likely not. You're buying into a system. The goal is to maximize adventure and go as many places as possible, or go to your favorite place on only a limited number of times, and you're buying just for the right to use part of a second home. And it's a luxury. It's not an investment. Just like owning a boat, an RV, or whatever, you have to maintain it, and over time they wear out. Only the timeshare doesn't wear out. It more or less just gets the maintenance fees go up. So that's kind of the trade-off for them to maintain it over time. Anyway, I hope this helps you reposition thinking of a timeshare as kind of like a second home. Certainly it's a vacation, but you can also think of it as a long-term investment in a second home that you use only partially, a couple weeks a year or a month a year or more. Don't forget to like, and don't forget to subscribe. Hi, this is Cliff, and I'm the Timeshare Traveler. Welcome to my channel. The purpose of my channel is to educate those who love traveling in timeshares. I've been an owner for 15 plus years at timeshare ownership. I have elite ownership with Marriott, Hilton, and Worldmark. I have published over 100 timeshare video reviews, and I've published over 95 timeshare tips. I can be found on Facebook at Timeshare Trav, at Twitter Timeshare Trav, and on the web at www.timesharetraveler.com.